उषा आहेत का चौकोनी चौकोनी का गोल उषा कपाटात आहे? हा जरा दोन काढा.
Sahana bhavatu sahano bhunaktu saha viryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We are on the 10th chapter of Vedanta Treatise, and last time we concluded the topic inquiry into oneself. So in the previous chapter, we were told about what we are. Now, having heard what we are, we have to do our own inquiry to look really what is there. Is whatever you have been told, you need to verify it, because the subject is about us. So who knows better myself than me, right? So whatever anyone says, I'm fully capable of verifying it. Now, why am I taking all this trouble? Is because of the law that if we entertain anything impure, we will meet with tremendous agitations. There is no getting away from this law. Impurity will breed agitation. So when you hear the word impurity, you think, oh, I've been bad in some way, or I've done something negative. And, things like that. I've been selfish, I've been self-centered, I've been wicked, I've been mean, I've been a bully, something like that. That's not incorrect. But what really is impurity is what? I mean, at its very base, what is it? What is impurity?
Vasanas.
Okay, that's correct. But in the context?
Other than self.
Very good. Asha, correct. Others. When you see something other than yourself, that's impure. You do not see this whole wide world as only yourself. Because that is what purity means, right? What does purity mean? That there is nothing else. So what is impurity? When I see something, when I imagine there is something other than the self, when I don't have that kind of oneness, agitations will start hitting me and I will not know what happened. Because if you do not align to the truth, what can happen? You can only get a whack. What else can happen? Suppose there's a wall in front of me and I don't align myself to the fact that there's a wall in front of me and I say, I'm going to walk through it. What am I going to get? I'm going to get a whack. To not be capable of seeing the truth is the problem of our life. You see the truth and there's no problem. That is why there's a beautiful Latin saying, it says, the truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. What a superb construct it is. Unfortunately, all the classical languages are hardly studied and all that knowledge is just disappearing. So if you meet any form, if you entertain any form of impurity, any form of otherness, then agitations will start hitting. You won't know what happened. When these agitations start hitting, at least then let us stop and find the real cause. This is where the whole problem is. We don't find the real cause, we find false causes. And therefore we have false solutions. To find the true cause, you can take help. You can take help of your scripture, of the Gita, of the Bible, of the Quran. You can take help of people with wisdom in the field. You can take all this help, but the real work has to be done by us and us alone. The buck stops here. You cannot say, oh, my guru will take care of me. No, he won't. Not that God will take care of me. No, he won't. You either take care of yourself or don't. The choice is yours. You take help. Help is always available to us. But help can only do so much. Just think about it, even if your body, okay, let's say you had some ailment, you had a fracture, or you have, I don't know, one of my uncles, very, very surprising. I mean, I never heard of this before, but he got some strange ailment by which his voice box stopped working. It just stopped working. He couldn't speak anymore. I mean, like, I never heard of this ailment before. And of course, he got help from all the doctors and everything. But the real work he had to do himself. Because after he has managed the ailment, he has to do all the physiotherapy. And if he doesn't do his own practice, he won't speak. And, for 1 year, he did all of that. And then he was able to speak again. So however good your doctor is, it's not going to help until you do your part. However much there is the grace of the Lord, the grace of the Guru, the scriptures, everything available to us, it won't help till we do our part. Suppose there is a piece of land, very fertile, lot of water, very fertile. Okay? It's like an excellent piece of land. It's very fertile, there's a lot of water available. Even if you put something, just throw something there, it will grow. Which is how one of my friends described Uganda to me. He said, it's so fertile, that land, that you just throw something, that will grow. But it's a poor land. Why?
Because the people refuse to
Stop
do the
work.
work.
The same thing with India, isn't it? It's a poor country. Why is it a poor country? Not because we don't have the resources. We have the world's greatest natural resources. We have among the world's largest population. We have the people, we have the resources. We should be top of the world, but we won't be. Why not? Somebody has to do something, right? So it's exactly like that. The grace of the Lord is there. The grace of the teacher is there. The grace of the scriptures is there. Everything is there. But we don't do our stuff. Ain't happening. Just ain't happening. So all this help. First step is you must locate the real problem and solution. Then you must put in your own effort. And if you do all this stuff, well, you will be a Buddha, you will be a Christ, you will be a Muhammad, you will be whatever in the world you want to be. You will be among the great people. But do the work. Now, where is the problem? Nobody wants to look within. And why not? Why do we not want to look within? Why do we not want to look within?
Because we identify the source of happiness outside.
Because it is so obvious to us that sorrow and joy comes to me from outside. This is very obvious to me. If you behave badly, I am unhappy. If you behave well with me, I'm happy. If you give me a mango, I'm happy. You give me a Karela, I'm unhappy. You give me a chocolate, I'm happy. You take my chocolate away, I'm very unhappy. It seems so obvious. It seems so clear. It seems like, why do people talk so much? What is there to not understand? You want to be happy, go to the pub, down a couple of drinks, and then you're fine. And you do that, and you do feel fine. And you see all this nonsense philosophy. Yes, it was such a simple answer. Just go to the pub and you're done. Go for, what is this, retail therapy? Go to the pub. And some people, they go exercise. And all of this will give you a high, it will give you the dopamine and the serotonin and all these things that they talk about nowadays. But they will not solve the problem. And the teachers plead with us to understand this.
Hari Om Janki ji.
Hari Om Ganesh.
But it's so right, no, that happiness is outside and everyone, whether you're 5 or you're 80. I have seen people, right, who are unhappy at home, but when they go and meet people or when they go to an event, there is a sudden happiness inside them. Once they come back and they are lonely, then it becomes this thing. So there is happiness outside, right?
Yes, there is. How can you deny the evidence of people's senses? You went there, you experienced happiness. Now somebody tells you there's no happiness, you think that person is mad. How can you deny the evidence of the senses? And that's exactly what this book is now about to get into.
I'll also make one last comment. Yes, we read, right? I have done my studies, not even though not in the morning, and it has brought improvement in my life. But if I have to compare studying or playing a game or meeting friends, I would say that meeting friends is more enjoyable than doing your study. And isn't it with the entire world? And that is why we move towards that.
Yeah, it is. We will give up our studies to meet our friends, which we do all the time, right? You go out for dinner with your friends. You know perfectly well you are not going to be able to get up and study in the morning. We do that. There's more joy in those things.
Thank
Just
you,
as any student, Ganesh, is there more joy in sitting in the canteen or in attending the classes?
Canteen.
Definitely, right?
Yes.
Then why do people have to go to this thing? Does the college want to take the the students' joy away by making them go to the class instead of just letting them hang out in the canteen? Why do we go to class then? When it's obviously better to sit in the canteen. We've all enjoyed sitting in the canteen way more than we've enjoyed going to class. Then why did we go to class?
Because we felt there was something more important over there.
Because you had some higher vision. You thought maybe I have to get graduation or I have to get a job or whatever in the world it is. You're willing to sacrifice that pleasure of the canteen towards the pleasure that you anticipate out of being a graduate or a married person or an employed person or whatever it is.
Mm.
Now, in this field, you can't see that. You know, we're trying to do the Vedanta University, and everyone is saying, but what will the student do afterwards? To my mind, my question is always, what are the others doing afterwards? But to everybody else, it is like, what will the person who has studied Vedanta do afterwards? And it seems so reasonable. If you went to medical college, you become a doctor. You go to arts college, you become an artist. You go to an engineering college, you become an engineer. You go to Vedanta, what will happen? How do you even answer that question? So, Ganesh, you're right that these things give us pleasure, but it's also true that many people voluntarily and consciously give up these pleasures. These pleasures can be given up when
There is a
your intellect can see something more. That is why a child is forced to go to school, whether he likes it or not. Because the intellect is not there to see what will happen by going to school and all that. You leave a child alone. You think any child will go to school?
No.
You will force the child. You say, no, you have to go to school. And sometimes you give a carrot. You go to school and I will give you a chocolate. The child goes to school because now it's thinking, oh, I'll get a chocolate. But it's just not getting the point. So yes, in fact, you are
The
right.
last thing is we can't see, if I have to win an Olympic goal, I can see the result later. But when it comes to self, I just cannot comprehend it.
Correct.
But still I'm going after it.
Yes, correct. If you are going after it, then you will know why you should. If you think it is something worth going after, and you've understood that, what kind of sacrifices people put in? Imagine the freedom fighters, what amount of sacrifice they put in, because they thought whatever they were achieving is worth it. What about the people in Nazi Germany? Just think of what was happening there. They were sending people to concentration camps. And some people said, this is not correct. I'm going to stand against it. Which means what? Can you imagine what degree of fear would have been in that person's mind? It's so much easier to say, okay, Baba, everybody's sending them to concentration camps. I will join this gang. But if I choose to stand against it, I may or may not save anyone, but I may be tortured to death. My family may be tortured to death. Imagine what were the consequences of those people trying to help their friends who were being taken to the concentration camp or some strangers. Yet they did it. How come? How can you put up with so much? The intellect has conceived something greater. It's willing to fight for it. So,
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
so when the intellect is not seeing any further, the mind is experiencing the joy. And the intellect is not, what should I say, nullifying, not even nullifying, not arguing against that joy. Because the mind has a very strong point, which is, I am happy. I am happy doing this. So therefore they say all those people who go to religion, they must be unhappy in some way. Otherwise, why have they come here? Most people cannot even conceive that people come to philosophy, come to religion without being unhappy. Because they don't understand it. You can be completely satisfied with your life. I mean, everything about your life is absolutely fine. But you still know that there is something more. So, now, when you are told to look within, there is an immediate argument. Right? We did that, right? We did that paragraph, right? The intelligence argue. We did that.
No, we have to do.
We have to do it. Okay. So let's read it. Who is reading?
I can read.
Go ahead.
The intelligentsia argue their sense organs enjoy these sense objects. That their eyes gain pleasure from sight, ears gain from sound, nose from smell, tongue from taste, and skin from touch. So does the mind contact and experience the joy of emotion. And the intellect revel in acquiring knowledge in the world. Their argument seems tenable. They are convinced that they perceive the pleasure and joy in the world and personally experience it. Nevertheless, Vedanta maintains that there is no pleasure or peace in the world. It bids you examine your conviction closely. You will then find the truth of its statement. According to scholars, our sense organs enjoy the sense objects. The eye gains pleasure from sight, sound from ears, and so on. Vedanta affirms that there is no peace and joy from sensory pleasures and directs that we examine this closely in our search for truth.
Only sensory pleasures?
All the five senses, sensory pleasures, yes.
Yes. Only sensory pleasures? Is that the only pleasure we know? When your granddaughter is doing well in school, which is the pleasure you're having?
Fine.
Emotional
Fine.
and intellectual. All.
Yes. Vedanta says there is no joy in sense pleasure. In emotional joys, granddaughter has come and has given you a tight hug and you're so thrilled, and Vedanta says no pleasure whatsoever. What nonsense this Vedanta talks, really. Why don't they get a grandchild and see what will happen? These grandparents are so obsessed with their grandchildren. They can't see anything further. If a person becomes a grandparent, I don't usually give advice. I'm giving you some advice. If a person, any friend of yours, becomes a grandparent, I suggest just keep away from this person, because they will never talk of anything other than their grandchildren. And the way they will express, oh my God, this child is so great. You'll think, what, is there an Einstein there? What has come over there? I mean, of course, the children are very cute, but there's no doubt about that. But you tell this grandparent, there is no emotional joy here. Listen, you're completely mad. Like, are you mad? You have a child, and then we'll see. You have a grandchild, then we will see. Okay? The fact is, any grandparent having a grandchild will feel that emotion of joy. Anytime you put a nice Alfonso mango on your tongue, you will feel the joy. At least if you're a Mumbaikar, you have Alfonso mango, you'll feel the joy. And you will. Nobody's denying it. We are fighting an unnecessary battle by telling Vedanta that of course there's joy, there's joy. Vedanta is not saying there's no joy. And it is. In the sense that there is a joy which you experience. There is no denying that. I hope that is very clear. That nobody is denying that when you contact these objects, they are capable of occasionally giving you joy. That same grandchild which is giving you so much joy at time X, in time Y, will not give you any joy. Especially when the child grows up and the grandparent is no longer interested in that grandchild. How many grandparents will step back and know that natural course of life has taken place? No teenager wants to hang out with their grandparents, right? The natural course of life and the right course. If he wants to hang out with his grandparents, something is wrong here. He will go fly his own flight. We keep holding on. So we understand, I think everybody in this class will understand that something that is capable of giving you joy now may not give you joy tomorrow. Is everybody clear about this? Step number 1 is objects can give joy. This is clear, I think, to everybody. Physical objects, emotional objects, intellectual objects. This is clear, right? Second point. These objects which are currently giving you joy may at a future point of time give you sorrow. This is also, I think, clear to everybody who attends these classes. Correct? Anybody has a problem with these 2 points? Anybody new today? Check. Okay, I can see any new names. That's very, I mean, not very good, but so y'all are all with me as far as this is concerned. Now here comes point number 3. Point number 3 is, remember the chronology, okay? Otherwise it gets confusing. The point number 3 is this, that this object that gives you joy is not giving you joy. This is where the trouble starts. Okay, I hope you're understanding the point. Point number 1. Okay, you tell me. Point number 1.
Objects
Objects
give
can give
joy.
us joy.
Objects give us joy. Point number 2.
Later stage, it won't.
At another stage, that joy may be snatched away from us. And point number 3.
No joy.
It has no joy. Now 1 and 2 we understand because we've experienced. Now this third point is a problem. Because how can you say that there is no joy? I can understand that there is varying joy. I can understand that it's changing joy. I understand that the joy goes away also. This also I understand. But how can you claim that there is no joy? This is difficult to understand. And that's where we have to wrap our heads around it. Because please note how, I don't know if you notice how he writes the book. He adds layers of understanding. And as you keep uncovering these layers of understanding, you take steps forward. So now this is a new point that he's giving to us. He's assuming now you've understood that sense objects give you joy, that sense objects can give you sorrow. Now he's gone to the third point, which is that sense objects, emotions, and concepts have no capacity to give joy. They don't have the capacity to give you joy or to give sorrow. Because in Vedanta, joy and sorrow are used interchangeably, okay? Joy and sorrow only means whatever reaction you have. So joy and sorrow are used interchangeably because as you come to higher levels of philosophy, they don't differentiate so much between things. It all becomes a baat because we're talking about the reaction, right? So are we clear that this point now is that there is no joy from an object? physical, mental, or intellectual. You say, okay, I understand about sense objects. Okay, I understand. Emotions also I understand. But how can you say morning study is no joy? It's the greatest joy I've ever experienced. Suppose you say that, it will still tell you there's no joy there. It's difficult, no? How are you going to wrap your head around it? So, very kindly, he has given us an example. But is the point clear? Before you go into the example, is the point clear? That an object, an emotion, or thought has no capacity to give us joy. Joy or sorrow? Is this point clear? Is the not the explanation, just what he is saying, is that clear? You got that, right? That's what he's saying. It is not capable of giving joy and sorrow.
We are neutralized.
No. No, that comes in point 2.
Yeah, okay.
That is not point 3. Neutralization says that you enjoyed an object and then you got neutralized. This is saying you didn't enjoy the object. Please, that's why, I'm sort of emphasizing it, that please notice the point he's making. The point he's making is that an object has no capacity to give joy or sorrow. Okay, I hope you all are clear with that. Can anyone repeat it for me?
Object will not give you joy or sorrow.
Yes, very good, Ganesh. I'm glad you repeated, because the first thing was that that the object does give joy and sorrow. And now we are saying object has no capacity to do it. So I say, are you mad? I experienced the joy and sorrow. How can you say it didn't give joy and sorrow? That the sorrow can come, the joy can go, all that I understand. But how can you say that the object has no capacity to give joy?
Janki-ji, can I say something?
Yes, please.
Like you said, sense objects have no capacity to give us joy and sorrow, but we do derive joy and sorrow, which means that our intellect is not developed to understand.
Wait, what is the explanation we'll come to? I'm just making a drama over understanding the point, because most people miss this point. It's a subtle point, so it just disappears. So how?
But then why do we get joy and sorrow if they have no capacity?
Yeah, we'll come to it. We're just coming to it. As long as you understand so much that they have just the sentence, you register the sentence. That's all that's required of us now.
I don't understand, but I accept what you're saying.
No, don't accept it. Just register it, that it was said that the objects have no joy and sorrow. Just register it. Now he's going to explain to us. He explains very well, so no need, you will read for yourself what he has to say. So, but just register, everybody, please, that he has just said a strange thing, which is that the object is not capable of giving joy or sorrow, not physical objects, not emotional objects, not intellectual objects. Okay? I hope you all have all registered that much. I'm making this big drama around it because people don't concentrate, and then they miss the point, and then they come back and they say, yeah, I know that the joy goes away. That's not what he's saying. He's saying there is no joy to go or come. No sorrow, no joy. Register, everybody. Give me a thumbs up so that I know you have registered the point. Thank you. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so now let's read further. Who will read the next paragraph? The next 2 paragraphs.
May I?
Yes, please do.
The error in the conviction of the intelligentsia is akin to professing that the moon has light in it. On a moonlit night, you see the light emerging from the moon. The full moon, 384,400 kilometers away, shedding its bright light over the earth. You use it to find your way. You enjoy the moonlight. By virtue of your experience, you aver there is light in the moon, and yet you will appreciate the moon has no light in it. It has only arid land and dust. You would know that when you approach it, when you reach it. The light that you see from afar is reflected light. The moon merely reflects the light of the sun. Similarly, the world has no happiness inherent in it, The pleasure and joy you seem to get out of the world is a reflection of the bliss of yourself. The self in you is all blissful. This supreme bliss is reflected the world over in every object and being, in every perception, emotion, and thought. You see pseudo bliss and run after it. When you get close and actually encounter it, you become disillusioned. No wonder the wealthy confess that there is no peace and happiness in wealth. The powerful, with all the power, also find themselves duped and disappointed. So it is with any worldly acquisition and enjoyment. Therefore, the way to ride over the monotony and misery of the world to find everlasting peace and happiness is to pursue and reach the source. Discover the self within you, the nucleus of true happiness. So he says that we just how we have experienced moonlight, we think the moon gives light, but it is actually just a reflection of the sun. Just like that, the joys we are experiencing in the world are actually a reflection of our true self. And we will only be able to find this out when we get that object and realize that it actually is not giving that joy. So the only way to get to it is just to reach the self.
Very good, Reshma. So he says there is no joy in the object. And you say, I'm experiencing the joy. To which he says, you're experiencing the moonlight. Not only you're experiencing and enjoying it, you use it to find your way. On a moonlit night, you can see the road, you can walk. In spite of all this, in spite of you having the moonlight, enjoying the moonlight, using it as a light to for your path, in spite of all this, the moon has no light. Then, Preeti, where is this light coming from? Preeti? Where did you go, Preeti?
Ma'am, it is preferential attachment, right?
Wait. Just go. Where is the moonlight coming from? Where is that light from the moon coming from?
Sun.
The sun.
It's a reflection. Just a reflection. And when you claim I'm enjoying the moonlight and someone tells you moon has no light, you say you're mad, can't you? You are yourself enjoying it and you're telling me there's no moonlight. What a superb example, no? You are seeing it, you're experiencing it, you're enjoying it. But there is no such thing. There is no moonlight. Then where then? But I'm experiencing the moonlight. Where is it coming from? It's coming from a sun that you cannot see. It's reflecting the glory of a sun which is not even available to our vision. And this is exactly what is happening when we experience the objects, emotions, and thoughts of this world. Just think about it. Is this not exactly the same? How do you say that the self is being reflected in all the objects? So, let's go step by step. This much is clear that though we get the happiness from the object, there is no happiness from the object. Clear? Then why do we get happiness from the object? Because there's a reflection of the self. Now, what do you mean that there's a reflection of the self? What does it even mean? It's all okay to say there's a reflection of the self. What does that sentence mean?
Janki ji,
Yeah.
can I ask if it's the same as when we say beauty is in the eye of the beholder?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you know, when you see an object, the object in itself is only pretty or nice because you think it is pretty and nice. Is that the same idea? That
It is similar, but this is going a step further. Okay, so let's see now. Let's say you are a Mumbaikar. You're a person from Mumbai. I don't know if you're familiar, Madeline, but in Mumbai, we believe that the only mango worthy of being eaten is a Ratnagiri Alfonso. Anything else is nonsense. You know this, okay? You've been to Mumbai, okay? So we believe so. Now, when we eat that Alfonso mango, let us see what is the actual mechanism taking place. It is now March or April, and the Mumbaikars have all started getting agitated to get their mango. It begins at a fabulous price, so we wait until the price comes down a little. Then we buy the mango, and we eat the mango. And then it is like nirvana. Oh wow, what a lovely mango. Now let's examine the mechanism of what happened here. In our mind is a desire for this mango. That desire in the mind agitates, creates ripples. When we eat the mango, the agitations that were caused by the desire subside. When those agitations subside, the natural bliss which is within us is experienced. So all joy comes out of the absence of the desire. You can get rid of the desire either through contact or sublimation. But in either case, as the desire comes down, you experience bliss. The opposite, Momita, is sorrow. As the desire goes up, sorrow. As the desire comes down, bliss. But where is this bliss coming from? It is coming from the self. We are already full. We are already paripurna. We are already happy. When our mind gets agitated, we just need something to soothe the mind, and then we're happy again. But if you realize this, if you take cognizance of it, you will find that before the agitation started, you were in the same state as after the agitation ended. But the state before the agitation, we don't call happiness. We call the state after the agitation happiness. Because happiness for us is only a comparison. The fact of the matter is you were as happy before. There was no difference between this and the previous day. You don't believe me. I know you don't believe me. So here, take an example. Here's my hand, okay? Looks gigantic, no, on the screen. Here's my hand. Okay, I'm comfortable with my hand. Now let us say that somebody puts my hand in a vice like that. And then what will happen? I'm very disturbed because my hand is being held tightly. And then somehow I'm able to release my hand, and now my hand is free. What will I feel? I feel relief. I feel fine. I feel good. Hello, I'm already feeling that right now, except I don't know it. So until somebody tortures me, I'm never going to feel that my hand is fine. This is how foolish we are. It makes no sense. It's like you throw a stone into a lake, then all the ripples will form. You wait over there, the ripples will subside. When they subside, you have a placid lake again. You say, oh, see, what a nice placid lake. Completely mad here. We'll take on a whole rigmarole of agitation only to return to the same point. Crazy, you know? If the joy, sorrow is a reflection of the self, but is the self neutral, then why this duality of joy and sorrow? The self is all bliss. We call it neutral only because we don't understand the term all bliss. So why this duality of joy and sorrow? As you approach joy, as you go away sorrow, as you approach joy, as you go away sorrow. That's why the duality comes. It's like going towards a light. The light is staying what it is. But you go towards it, you see more light. You go away from it, you see less light. So I hope it is clear. The point he made is that the objects do not have joy and sorrow. When you experience the joy and sorrow out of them, they are merely the reflection of the self. Whatever you associate with the self will become joyful. Whatever you disassociate with the self will become non-joyful, will become sorrowful. Isn't that really true? Can you give me an example? If you associate anything with the self, it becomes joyful. And if you dissociate, it becomes non-joyful. Can you give me an example?
When you go on a fast, if you are spiritually seeking fulfillment, then that fasting becomes inspirational for you and you enjoy it. But if you're just hungry and thinking about food all the time and not on a spiritual plane, then it becomes painful for you, that same fasting.
Yes, it's a good example, but not exactly of this point. Your example is how do people it's a good example of what Ganesh was speaking of earlier. Food is pleasurable, then why do people voluntarily fast? Because they see something bigger. If they cannot see something bigger, they spend the day grumbling and complaining. Same thing, no? You're all working for the university. Those who are working for the university are inspired to do that. Those who are not working for the university will say, who don't have that vision will say, oh,
So much work.
So much work, I have to do this also, I have to do that also. When a mother is looking after her child, she'll do anything for that child. When the maid is looking after the child, the maid will say, oh, I have to do this also for the child. The world of difference, no? And the only difference is what in your head is happening. Some people say, oh my God, we have to collect funds for the university. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Because that vision isn't clear. But if you think that that vision is important, then what option do you have? I mean, how are you going to make it without funds? So everything is a matter of what is that vision? When the vision is there, you will circumvent everything. The vision is not there, everything becomes a problem. If you are if a father or a child is in another city, and they have fallen ill and there's a medical emergency, and you have to rush there. Do you start saying, oh my God, I have to pack my clothes, I have to buy a ticket, I have to call a Uber to take me to the airport? Do you even talk like this ever? Never. You just get down to doing whatever needs to be done. But when there's no such vision, then there's a lot of grumbling and complaining. So, Naim, your example is for that. How do people overcome what seems to be displeasurable?
More sublimation, I think, Janki, right?
Yeah, sublimation. You are overcoming, sublimating, whatever word you want to use, a displeasurable thing because of a higher vision. If you have. If you don't, then you grumble. But this point is, how do you associate everything with the self? When do you associate?
When we have a desire for the self.
Okay. you don't need not even take it very philosophically, just common sensically. Just think about this, okay? Suppose you go to a restaurant, okay, and you order noodles, and in that noodles, God forbid, there is a hair. What a fit you will throw. What nonsense, hair in my food, yuck, horrible, horrible, horrible. Suppose you are at home, noodles that you have cooked, and while you're eating, unfortunately, there's a hair in it. Now what will you do? Will you say, oh, horrible, 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 I'll cook again? You don't do that. It's your own hair. Do you realize that anything that you associate with yourself is a source of pleasure, and anything you do disassociate is a source of displeasure? Have you ever realized that? No matter how terrible my son is, he's a great source of pleasure to me because my son. What is that? They say this funny ad they have. Teda hai par mera hai. You ever heard that? Teda hai par mera hai. Means whatever is wrong with it, it is mine. And because it is mine, it is dear to me. So anything that I associate with the self becomes pleasurable. What becomes displeasurable? Whatever I disassociate from the self. I say, no, this is not me. So my country becomes valuable to me because it's my country. But if I don't see it as my country, it's nothing. So whatever I associate with myself, the more I can associate with myself, the wider my sense of identification, the more joy is available. These are different ways of looking at the same idea, okay? So the more I can see, how much can I say is me? How much? The more I can say is me, the more joy to me. See, my husband is mine, my children are mine. Okay, so they are all joyous to me. Even when they irritate me, they're still joyous to me. How do you know? Because you tell the mother who is fighting with her son also that now you let the son go live separately. He said, no, he's my son. No, how can he go live separately? So anything associated with ourselves. But if you disassociate, if you say, no, nothing to do with me, then again, instantly that thing will be. So my son is mine. My daughter-in-law is not yet mine. No association. But no association means displeasure. So the more we associate with ourselves, the greater the pleasure. If I say all humanity is myself, greater the pleasure. If I say only me and my family, my pleasure is very restricted. So the more I can spread out the identification, means what? I will see this reflection of the self in more things. If I see the reflection of the self in more and more and more and more things, I will eventually see the self. Momita, you have something?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little confused about how we experience sorrow. The self is bliss, and therefore, as we approach it, we experience joy, and as we recede from it, we experience sorrow. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we also say that the more I can say is me, the more I experience joy.
That's correct.
I'm a little confused about the sorrow, but why we experience sorrow the way we do.
Sorrow is nothing but an interrupted desire. Okay, nothing very complicated in sorrow. You have a desire. That desire is not fulfilled. You will experience sorrow. Simple enough.
Yeah.
Now, when the desire is there, you are blocking off the light, as it were. Okay, let's imagine there's a bulb. Okay, on that bulb, I put a blanket. So I blocked off the light of the bulb. But if I remove that desire, the light of the bulb will come through. As long as the blanket is there, I'm in darkness. Remove the blanket, the light comes through.
Okay. Thank you.
Janki ji.
Yeah, go ahead, Uttara.
Yeah. So just as if we extend ourselves and if we see like the entire universe as ourselves, so the entire universe's sorrows also become ourselves, isn't it? Then how do we experience joy?
The subtler your personality becomes, the less you are affected by the joys and sorrows. So basically, you get a double benefit. One is your joys increase, and secondly, you're less affected by joys and sorrows. For instance, if I am very thrilled I got a Mercedes, I haven't got a Mercedes, okay, just as an example. I'm very thrilled I got a Mercedes, then I'm thrilled I got a Mercedes. But if I identify with my whole building, then anybody in the building gets a Mercedes, I'm very happy. Oh, you know, in our building we have a Mercedes. And I go and I say, okay, take me for a ride in your Mercedes or whatever. Okay, I'm very excited because somebody else got a Mercedes. So I have doubled my joys, because now anyone in the building gets it, or anyone in my community gets it, wherever according to me my identification lies. Now let us say, for argument's sake, that poor man, something happens to his Mercedes, then I will feel very bad, isn't it? But that night when I go home to sleep, will I not be able to sleep?
Yeah, if I extend myself, then I won't be able to sleep, no, because I will also suffer for him. That okay, my God.
No, that's not what happens. What happens is you're not affected. At the higher you go, the less you're affected by the sorrow. Okay, now let's take this in partition, for instance. I don't know if you remember the movie Gandhi, because they showed it very well. In Gandhi, you remember Attenborough, right? Attenborough.
Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah. So you know that all these people were all killing each other over there. And then there's a scene where Gandhi is just standing in a dark room, just standing. It's a terrible, terrible thing. You know, more people died in the partition, in what was supposed to be a peaceful partition. I mean, there was no quarrel, there was no war, than died in the 2 world wars. That's how many people died. Ridiculous amount of people. For what reason is totally not clear. Now, Gandhi is facing the consequences of this act of partition. Can you imagine how his heart must be breaking at that partition? Breaking at partition means breaking at the fact of all his people being killed. Both sides he saw his own, so both sides are being killed.
Yes.
So he is terribly, terribly hurt by what happened. Now you compare this pain that Gandhi will go through to a man who has, say, lost his child. Gandhi's pain will be more, his affectation will be less. The fellow who's lost his child, now when I say more, it will be deeper, much more deep pain. The person who has lost his own child is totally agitated. I don't know if you can see that difference in as you grow, how you not only become capable of deeper emotions, you're also more stable in your emotions.
Janki, can we say because there's no attachment?
Yeah, you can say that. But you know, that is more, yeah, that you can say that. There is no attachment to the smaller section. There's attachment to the larger section. So if you remember, we studied in the chapter on emotions that when your emotions are gathered onto one spot, they're all gathered together like that. The poison, they're like acid on our system. They wreck our system. These same emotions, when they spread, then they become medicinal, as it were. Remember, I gave the example of poison. That the poison, if you have it in a concentrated dose like that, it'll kill you. That same thing is given as a medicine, but in a more diffused manner.
Janki ji, in Bhakti Yoga, aren't we trying to do this exactly? We're trying to gather our emotions at one place towards the self.
Yes and no, because when you say, I'm gathering my emotions to God, then you know God is all pervading. God, if you take God as one particular thing somewhere, and he's like only this murti or only this idol or only this faith or something like that, you will become a fanatic. There's no bhakti yoga going on. To know bhakti, you have to go to Meera. What does she say about her Lord? She says, all the bhaktas will say one common thing. You know what is a common thing between all bhaktas of all religions? One common thing they will say. Anyone knows? They only can see their Lord. They can't see anything. Everyone. You know the story, famous story of Guru Nanak. He was running his shop. And then that man asked for a certain amount, 15 whatever of those, whatever they give, that measure. And then he did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, 10, 11, 12. He's measuring out the wheat. He's saying 11, 12, 13, 13, 13. He emptied out the shop because he was only saying 13, 13, 13. 13 means yours. And 13 is also 13. So all yours, like his thought of the Lord. So the bhakta sees the Lord everywhere. You see, Mirabai also talks of the same concept everywhere. And Kabir says, Ghat ghat mera saiya tuja ghat nahi koi. Huh?
Suna ghat nahi koi.
Suna ghat nahi koi. Thank you, Bharat. Ghat ghat mera saiya suna ghat nahi koi. Balihari va ghat ki chagat par ghat ho. So what it means is, on every ghat, ghat is in every place, let's say place. In every place is my Sai, is my Lord. Suna ghat nahi koi. There is not a single place he is not. See what he has done? He's expanded the concept everywhere. There's no place where God is not. Balihari va ghat ki chagat par ghat ho. It means I will give up my life. Balihari means this thing they do, no? That is that Balihari. So I'll give up my life. I give up everything for that place where he is manifested. Means in front of a wise person. God is everywhere, but he manifests most in front of a wise person. So all bhaktas, all of them have told us one common thing, that God is everywhere. There is no escaping him. And when you say, I love God, that means you basically are saying, I love everything. Is that clear, Deepraj?
Yes.
One quick question can I ask before? Or
Okay, we are beyond time. Quick question and quick answer.
Ma'am, the text says the self enlightens joy. All right? Enlivens. But joy is preferential attachment, right? So I may be interested in one object, but a B person is another object. So that is why there is no joy, right? It's all preferential. It's a preference.
Yeah, it's a desire.
Okay.
A desire covers, as long as there's an unfulfilled desire, you're covering the bliss of the self. When that desire is removed, either out of fulfillment or any other reason, you are uncovering the joy.
We are looking at a bigger universe. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so that's it. Anyone has any announcements for us?